Dr. Lisa had always been the kind of person who kept her distance, not in a mean way, but she just wasn't touchy-feely. While other people hugged hello or patted shoulders during conversations, she stayed in her own bubble. Handshakes were fine, but anything more felt awkward and unnecessary. Working as a psychology researcher at the university, she spent her days studying how people connect with each other. Her latest project was fascinating. She wanted to understand how simple touches like hugs, hand-holding, or even brief shoulder taps could make people feel better and bring them closer together. The research was eye-opening. Study after study showed that when people have positive physical contact, their brains release special chemicals that make them feel happy and calm. Stress levels dropped. People felt more connected to others. Even their immune systems worked better. It was like discovering a superpower that humans had always possessed but rarely talked about scientifically. Lisa spent months diving deep into this research. She read hundreds of papers from scientists around the world. She looked at brain scans showing how different types of touch activated various regions. She studied stress hormone levels in people before and after they received supportive touches from friends or family members. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans were literally designed to connect through gentle, appropriate physical contact, but there was something ironic about her situation. Here she was, studying the incredible benefits of human touch, while she herself had somehow created a life almost completely devoid of it. She lived alone, worked mostly by herself, and had gradually built walls that kept people at arm's length. Even her closest friends knew better than to try hugging her goodbye. This realization hit her one Tuesday afternoon while reviewing data from her latest experiment. The participants who received brief, supportive touches during stressful tasks performed better and reported feeling significantly happier afterward. Meanwhile, she sat alone in her office, tense shoulders hunched over her computer, feeling the familiar knot of stress in her neck that had become her constant companion. That same week, she got a new research assistant, a graduate student named Maya who had volunteered to help with the project. Maya was everything Lisa wasn't when it came to interpersonal connection. She naturally offered quick hugs to colleagues she hadn't seen in a while. During team meetings, she might briefly touch someone's arm while making a point. When celebrating small victories in the lab, she was the first to suggest high fives all around. Lisa found herself both envious and fascinated by Maya's ease with appropriate physical contact. Maya seemed genuinely happier and more relaxed than most people. In their high-stress academic environment, she laughed more easily, handled criticism better, and had this natural warmth that drew others to her. Watching Maya interact with others made Lisa wonder what she might be missing. All this research showed clear benefits of human touch for well-being, yet she had unconsciously eliminated almost all of it from her own life. She began to question whether her professional detachment had gone too far, creating personal isolation she hadn't even recognized. During late nights in the lab, Lisa started paying more attention to how Maya naturally incorporated brief, appropriate touches into normal interactions. A congratulatory hand on the shoulder when someone shared good, and a brief pat on the back when offering encouragement. These weren't romantic gestures or inappropriate contact. They were simply the natural ways humans had always shown care and support. Lisa began to notice how her own body reacted when she observed these interactions. There was something almost painful about watching others experience the kind of connection she had trained herself to avoid. She felt like an outsider looking in at something fundamental to human experience that she had somehow convinced herself she didn't need. The more she studied the neuroscience behind human touch, the more she understood what she had been missing. Her research showed that people who experienced regular, appropriate physical affection had lower anxiety levels, better sleep, stronger immune systems, and reported higher overall life satisfaction. They formed deeper friendships and seemed more resilient when facing challenges. Meanwhile, her own stress levels remained chronically high. She had trouble sleeping, caught every cold that went around the office, and often felt disconnected from colleagues who seemed to effortlessly support each other through both successes and setbacks. She was successful professionally, but something essential was missing from her daily experience. One evening, while working late with Maya on data analysis, Lisa made an observation that would change everything. Maya had briefly placed her hand on Lisa's shoulder while pointing out something interesting in their results, and for just a moment, Lisa felt something she hadn't experienced in years, a sense of calm and connection that seemed to spread through her entire body. The touch lasted maybe 3 seconds, but its impact was profound. The constant tension in her shoulders seemed to melt away. Her racing thoughts slowed down. For the first time in months, she felt genuinely present in the moment rather than anxiously thinking ahead to the next task. This small interaction sparked something in Lisa's mind. What if she could somehow test her own research on herself? What if she could gradually reintroduce appropriate physical contact into her life and document the effects? It would be like conducting a personal case study on someone who had been essentially touch-starved for years. The scientist in her was curious about what might happen if she intentionally reversed years of social distance. Would she experience the same benefits her research subjects reported? Could she learn to be comfortable with the kind of natural, supportive touches that seemed so effortless for people like Maya? That night, Lisa went home with an idea that felt both exciting and terrifying. She had spent years studying how humans bond through touch from a safe, academic distance. Now she was considering stepping into her own research and discovering firsthand what she had been missing all along. The next morning, Lisa couldn't stop thinking about that brief moment when Maya had touched her shoulder. It was such a simple gesture, but it had created this unexpected feeling of calm and connection. As a researcher, she knew she needed to approach this scientifically, but as a person who had been living without meaningful physical contact for years, she felt nervous about what she was considering. She decided to start small and treat it like any other research project. Lisa would document everything: her stress levels, mood, sleep quality, and overall sense of well-being. She would gradually introduce appropriate physical contact back into her daily interactions and measure the effects. Maya, who was already comfortable with natural, supportive touches, would be the perfect person to help with this personal experiment. When Lisa approached Maya with the idea, she was careful to frame it professionally. She explained that she wanted to experience her own research firsthand, to better understand what her study participants went through. Maya, being a psychology student herself, found the concept fascinating and agreed to help. They both understood this would be strictly for research purposes, with clear boundaries and Maya's comfort level being the priority. They started with the most basic interactions. Instead of their usual professional handshakes, they began greeting each other with brief, appropriate hugs at the beginning and end of each workday. Lisa would document how she felt before and after these moments. The first few times felt awkward and forced, but gradually, something began to shift. Within just a few days, Lisa noticed changes she hadn't expected. The chronic tension she carried in her neck and shoulders started to ease slightly. Her sleep, which had been restless for months, became deeper and more refreshing. Most surprisingly, she found herself looking forward to these simple moments of connection in ways that went beyond scientific curiosity. As the experiment continued, they expanded to include other natural touches that might occur between colleagues and friends. A congratulatory pat on the back when one of them had a breakthrough with their research, a brief, supportive hand on the shoulder during stressful moments, sitting close enough during meetings that their arms might occasionally brush against each other. Lisa documented everything carefully. Her stress hormone levels, which she measured through simple saliva tests, showed noticeable improvements. Her heart rate variability, an indicator of overall health and stress resilience, began trending in a positive direction. Even her productivity at work seemed to increase as she felt more relaxed and focused. But something unexpected was happening alongside these positive changes. Lisa began to realize just how much she had been missing. It was like someone who had been living in a dimly lit room suddenly experiencing bright sunlight. Overwhelming and wonderful at the same time, she started noticing how often Maya naturally incorporated supportive touches into her interactions with others. And Lisa felt a strange pang of something she couldn't quite identify. When Maya would briefly hug another colleague hello or pat someone's arm during conversation, Lisa found herself wishing she could experience that same natural ease and connection. The professional boundaries of their experiment began to feel limiting. Lisa caught herself creating small excuses to work closely with Maya, positioning herself so they might accidentally brush hands while reaching for the same document, or finding reasons to celebrate small victories that might warrant a congratulatory hug. What concerned her most was how different she felt when Maya wasn't around. On days when Maya had classes or was working on other projects, Lisa noticed her stress levels climbing back up. The shoulder tension returned. She felt more isolated and anxious, as if she had become dependent on these moments of connection in ways she hadn't intended. During one particularly busy week, Lisa realized she had unconsciously increased the frequency of their physical interactions. What started as brief hugs twice a day had expanded to multiple supportive touches. Throughout their work sessions, a hand on Maya's shoulder while reading data together, a brief back pat when Maya seemed frustrated with a challenging analysis, quick celebratory hugs whenever they made progress on their research. Maya, being naturally warm and supportive, didn't seem to mind these interactions. But Lisa began to worry that she was crossing invisible lines. The scientist in her recognized that she was no longer conducting an objective experiment. She was experiencing something more personal and potentially problematic. The most troubling realization came during a department meeting when Maya was presenting their research findings to other faculty members. Lisa found herself feeling anxious and disconnected, not because of the presentation itself, but because she couldn't access the physical comfort she had grown accustomed to. She caught herself wanting to reach out and touch Maya's arm supportively during the presentation, even though it would have been completely inappropriate in that professional setting. That evening, Lisa sat in her office reviewing her data and confronting an uncomfortable truth. While the physical and emotional benefits of appropriate touch were undeniable, her stress levels had improved, her sleep was better, and she felt more connected to others. She was beginning to depend on Maya specifically for these benefits in ways that weren't healthy or sustainable. She realized that somewhere in the process of reintroducing touch into her life, she had developed what felt like an emotional dependency on one person. The research that was supposed to help her understand healthy human connection was revealing something deeper about her own unmet needs and attachment patterns. The experiment that had started as professional curiosity was becoming something much more complex and personal than either of them had anticipated. 6 weeks into what Lisa had hoped would be a straightforward personal research project, she woke up one Monday morning with a sinking realization. As she got ready for work, she noticed her heart rate increasing slightly at the thought of seeing Maya, not because she was nervous about their research, but because she genuinely needed that morning hug to feel centered and ready for the day. This wasn't the detached, scientific observation she had planned. This was something much more personal and concerning. Lisa had somehow become emotionally dependent on Maya's physical presence and touch in ways that went far beyond professional collaboration or even normal friendship. The signs had been building gradually, but now they were impossible to ignore. Lisa found herself scheduling unnecessary meetings with Maya, creating small tasks that required them to work closely together, and feeling genuinely anxious on weekends when they weren't in contact. She had even started staying late at the university on evenings, when she knew Maya would be in the lab, hoping for those casual interactions that had become so important to her emotional well-being. What made it worse was that Maya seemed genuinely happy to help and didn't appear to notice anything unusual about Lisa's increased need for physical contact. Maya was naturally affectionate and supportive, so when Lisa asked for a quick hug after a stressful phone call, or reached out to touch her arm during conversation, it probably seemed normal within the context of their ongoing experiment. But Lisa knew better. She was keeping detailed notes about their interactions, and the pattern was clear. What had started as a brief, Appropriate hugs per day had evolved into multiple physical contacts throughout their time together. A hand on the shoulder while reviewing data. A brief back rub when Maya mentioned feeling tense from hunching over her computer. Quick congratulatory embraces. Whenever they made progress on any aspect of their work, the most troubling moment came. During a particularly stressful deadline week, Lisa and Maya were working late, trying to finalize a presentation for an important conference. As they sat side by side reviewing their slides, Lisa found herself unconsciously stroking Maya's arm while they discussed changes to their conclusions. It was such a natural gesture that she didn't even realize she was doing it, until Maya gently shifted in her chair, subtly moving her arm away. The small rejection hit Lisa like a physical blow. Her chest tightened, and she felt a wave of panic. She couldn't explain rationally. It was as if Maya's gentle boundary setting triggered some deep fear of abandonment or isolation. Lisa had to excuse herself to the bathroom to collect herself, shocked by the intensity of her emotional response to such a minor interaction. That night, Lisa lay awake analyzing what was happening to her. She had approached this experiment thinking she could maintain professional detachment while exploring the benefits of human touch. Instead, she had developed what felt like an addiction to physical contact with one specific person. Maya had become her primary source of emotional regulation, and Lisa felt genuinely distressed when that source wasn't available or seemed less responsive. The situation became even more complicated when other people in their department began commenting on Lisa's transformation. Colleagues mentioned how much more relaxed and approachable she seemed compared to her previous reserved demeanor. Her department had even complimented her on becoming more collaborative and team-oriented. But Lisa realized that these positive changes only happened when Maya was around. When Maya was absent from work due to illness or other commitments, Lisa felt irritable, disconnected, and struggled to interact naturally with others. She was experiencing what felt like withdrawal symptoms when separated from Maya's comforting presence. Her sleep quality decreased. Her concentration suffered. She found herself checking her phone constantly, hoping for text messages or emails that might indicate when Maya would be back in the office. This was not the healthy reintroduction to human touch that she had envisioned. The breaking point in Lisa's self-awareness came during a routine team meeting. Maya was presenting some preliminary findings from their research to other faculty members. Lisa sat in the back of the room, ostensibly taking notes, but actually struggling with an overwhelming urge to somehow offer Maya physical support. During the presentation, she wanted to reach out and squeeze Maya's hand encouragingly, or at least position herself close enough to offer a supportive touch afterward. These impulses felt completely inappropriate in the professional setting, but Lisa couldn't shake them. She realized that her need for physical contact with Maya had started to override her usual good judgment about appropriate workplace behavior. The boundaries she had always maintained so carefully were dissolving, replaced by this intense need for connection that felt beyond her conscious control. After the meeting, Lisa did manage to give Maya a quick congratulatory hug for her excellent presentation, but even that brief contact felt different now. Instead of the mutual, supportive gesture it had been initially, Lisa felt like she was taking something she needed while Maya was simply being kind and accommodating. That evening, Lisa forced herself to confront the uncomfortable truth she had been avoiding. Her research into human bonding through touch had revealed something important about the power of physical connection, but it had also exposed her own deep loneliness and unmet need for human contact. Years of professional isolation had left her starved for connection, and when she finally experienced the neurological benefits of appropriate touch, she had overcorrected in ways that were neither healthy nor fair to Maya. She was putting Maya in an impossible position, making her responsible for Lisa's emotional well-being, while potentially making her uncomfortable with the increasing frequency and intensity of Lisa's need for physical contact. The very research that was supposed to help her understand healthy human connection was instead revealing how her own attachment patterns had become problematic. Lisa knew she needed to address this situation before it damaged both her professional relationship with Maya and potentially Maya's comfort and well-being. but she also felt terrified at the prospect of returning to the isolated, touch-starved existence she had lived before. The benefits she had experienced were real and significant, but her approach had become unsustainable and unfair to everyone involved. The annual university holiday party was supposed to be a fun, relaxed evening for everyone in the psychology department. Lisa had been looking forward to it all week, mainly because it meant spending several hours in the same room as Maya outside of their usual work environment. She told herself it was just nice to socialize with colleagues. But deep down, she knew her anticipation had more to do with her growing dependence on Maya's presence. From the moment Lisa arrived at the party, she found herself unconsciously tracking Maya's location in the room. When Maya was talking with other graduate students near the refreshment table, Lisa positioned herself nearby, pretending to browse the food selection. When Maya moved to join a conversation with faculty members, Lisa drifted in that direction, inserting herself into discussions she normally wouldn't have bothered with. What Lisa didn't realize was how obvious her behavior had become. Throughout the evening, she found reasons to briefly touch Maya's arm during conversations, to adjust a strand of Maya's hair that wasn't actually out of place, and to offer quick shoulder massages when Maya mentioned feeling a bit tense from the long week. Each touch felt natural to Lisa in the moment, but together they created a pattern that was impossible to ignore. The situation reached its peak when Maya stepped away from their conversation to use the restroom instead of continuing to chat with the other colleagues they had been talking with. Lisa found herself following Maya across the room, unable to engage meaningfully with anyone else when Maya wasn't within arm's reach. She stood awkwardly by the restroom door, pretending to check her phone while waiting for Maya to return. When Maya came back and rejoined a different group of people, Lisa immediately abandoned her previous conversation and moved to stand beside Maya again. She placed her hand on Maya's lower back while listening to someone tell a story, then later rested her arm around Maya's shoulders during group photos, holding on just a bit longer than necessary after each picture was taken. The breaking point came when Maya tried to step away to get some fresh air on the outdoor patio. Lisa immediately offered to join her, even though she had been in the middle of a conversation with her department head about an upcoming research grant. As they walked outside together, Lisa instinctively reached for Maya's hand, claiming she was worried about the uneven patio stones in the dark. Once they were alone outside, Maya turned to face Lisa with an expression that was both kind and concerned. The conversation that followed would change everything between them. Though it started gently enough, Maya began by saying she valued their friendship and had genuinely enjoyed helping with Lisa's research project. She acknowledged that the experiment had clearly been beneficial for Lisa's well-being and stress levels, which everyone in the department had noticed. But then Maya's tone became more serious as she explained that she was starting to feel uncomfortable with the intensity and frequency of Lisa's need for physical contact. Maya pointed out specific examples from that evening alone: the constant touching, the way Lisa seemed unable to focus on other people when Maya wasn't nearby, and how Lisa appeared to be monitoring her movements throughout the party. Maya explained that while she understood Lisa was exploring the benefits of human touch for research purposes, the dynamic between them had shifted into something that felt more like emotional dependence than scientific exploration. The words hit Lisa like a cold splash of water. Hearing Maya describe her behavior from an outside perspective was both humiliating and eye-opening. Lisa realized that what felt natural and necessary to her was actually making Maya feel responsible for Lisa's emotional regulation in ways that weren't fair or sustainable. Maya continued by expressing concern that their professional relationship was being compromised by Lisa's personal needs. She worried that other colleagues might start to notice the unusual dynamic between them, which could affect both of their reputations in the department. More importantly, Maya felt that she was being put in a position where she couldn't set normal boundaries without potentially causing Lisa distress. Lisa's initial reaction was defensive. She tried to explain that this was still part of her research, that she was simply experiencing the natural human need for connection that her studies had revealed. But as she heard herself making these arguments, she realized how hollow they sounded. Maya was right. This had stopped being about research a long time ago. The conversation continued for almost an hour, with Maya patiently but firmly helping Lisa understand how her behavior had evolved from healthy exploration of human connection into something that was unfair to both of them. Maya explained that she felt like she couldn't have normal interactions with other colleagues or take breaks from work without worrying about how it might affect Lisa's emotional state. As painful as it was to hear, Lisa began to recognize the truth in Maya's observations. She had indeed been using Maya as a primary source of emotional regulation, expecting her to be available for physical comfort whenever Lisa felt stressed, lonely, or overwhelmed. She had created a dynamic where Maya felt responsible for Lisa's well-being in ways that went far beyond normal friendship or professional collaboration. The most difficult moment came when Maya asked Lisa directly whether she thought their current dynamic was healthy or sustainable. Could Lisa imagine maintaining this level of physical and emotional dependence on one person long-term? What would happen if Maya graduated and moved away, or simply needed space for her own relationships and personal growth? These questions forced Lisa to confront the reality that her approach to addressing her touch starvation had created new problems rather than solving the underlying issues. She had become dependent on one specific person for something that should have been met through a broader network of healthy relationships and self-care practices. By the end of their conversation, Lisa felt devastated, but also strangely relieved. Maya's honesty had been difficult to hear, but it had also given Lisa the clarity she needed to understand what had really been happening. Her research into human bonding through touch had revealed important truths about her own emotional needs, but her response to those discoveries had been neither healthy nor fair to the person she had asked to help her. As they walked back inside together, Lisa knew that everything would need to change. The question was whether she could find healthier ways to meet her legitimate needs for human connection, without putting unfair burdens on others or compromising important relationships in her life. The weekend after her conversation with Maya felt like the longest 48 hours of Lisa's life. She spent most of Saturday in her apartment, alternating between feeling embarrassed about her behavior and anxious about what would happen next. The thought of facing Maya at work on Monday, knowing that their entire dynamic would have to change, filled her with a kind of dread she hadn't experienced since graduate school. But by Sunday evening, Lisa had made a decision that would prove to be the turning point in her journey. Instead of avoiding the situation or trying to convince Maya to continue their previous arrangement, she would take full responsibility for what had happened and seek professional help to understand why her response to touch starvation had become so problematic. First thing Monday morning, Lisa approached Dr. Rodriguez, a colleague in the department who specialized in attachment theory and relationship dynamics. She explained the situation honestly, describing how her research into human touch had led to a personal experiment that had gotten out of hand. Dr. Rodriguez listened without judgment and helped Lisa understand that her intense reaction to Maya's physical comfort wasn't really about Maya at all. What Lisa had experienced was a common response to sudden reintroduction of physical affection. After years of isolation, her nervous system had become so accustomed to operating without supportive touch that when she finally experienced it, her brain treated it like a scarce resource that needed to be protected and secured. This explained why she had become so focused on Maya specifically, rather than learning to seek appropriate physical connection from multiple sources. Dr. Rodriguez also helped Lisa understand that her years of professional detachment had created what psychologists call touch starvation, a condition where the lack of appropriate physical contact actually changes how the nervous system responds to stress and connection. When touch-starved people suddenly experience regular physical affection, they can develop what feels like an addiction to that specific source of comfort. The solution wasn't to return to complete isolation, but to slowly and intentionally build a broader network of appropriate physical connections, while learning healthier ways to self-regulate emotions. Dr. Rodriguez recommended that Lisa start working with a therapist who could help her explore her attachment patterns and develop better strategies for meeting her legitimate needs for human connection. Lisa also knew she needed to have another conversation with Maya, this time focused entirely on apologizing and taking responsibility for putting her in such an uncomfortable position. When they met for coffee later that week, Lisa was prepared with a genuine apology that didn't make excuses or try to minimize the impact of her behavior. She acknowledged that she had allowed her personal needs to compromise their professional relationship and had made Maya feel responsible for her emotional well-being in ways that weren't appropriate. Lisa assured Maya that she would be working with a therapist to develop healthier coping strategies, and that Maya should never feel obligated to provide physical comfort or emotional support beyond what felt natural and comfortable for her. Maya's response was more gracious than Lisa had expected. She appreciated Lisa's honesty and willingness to take responsibility, and she expressed hope that they could rebuild their working relationship with clearer boundaries. They agreed to return to their original professional dynamic while Lisa worked on developing a more sustainable approach to meeting her needs for human connection. The therapy process was challenging but incredibly helpful. Lisa's therapist helped her understand that her intense focus on Maya had been a way of avoiding the deeper work of building genuine connections. With multiple people in her life, it was easier to depend on one person who was already comfortable with physical affection than to gradually expand her comfort zone with others. Over the following months, Lisa began implementing practical strategies for meeting her need for appropriate physical contact in healthier ways. She started getting regular massage therapy, which provided beneficial touch in a professional, therapeutic context. She joined a recreational volleyball league, where casual physical contact like high fives and celebratory hugs were built into the activity itself. Most importantly, Lisa began rebuilding friendships that had been neglected during her years of professional isolation. She reached out to old friends, started accepting invitations to social gatherings, and gradually became comfortable with the kind of casual, supportive touches that are normal parts of healthy friendships. A pat on the back from a colleague after a successful presentation, a brief hug goodbye after dinner with friends. These interactions no longer felt overwhelming or awkward. Lisa also started volunteering at the local animal shelter, where caring for cats and dogs provided another source of beneficial physical contact and emotional connection. The animals didn't judge her for her previous struggles with human touch, and the volunteer work helped her feel more connected to her community while contributing to something meaningful. Perhaps most surprisingly, Lisa's research actually benefited from her personal experience. She was able to add valuable insights to her studies about the potential risks of reintroducing physical affection too quickly after periods of isolation. Her published papers included important sections about the need for graduated, consensual approaches to addressing touch starvation and the importance of building diverse support networks. Rather than depending on individual relationships, the relationship with Maya eventually returned to a comfortable professional collaboration. Maya graduated the following year and moved to another city for her doctoral program, but they maintained friendly contact through occasional emails and conference interactions. Lisa felt genuinely proud that she had been able to address the problems in their dynamic without damaging Maya's career or well-being. 2 years later, Lisa looked back on that difficult period as one of the most important learning experiences of her life. She had discovered that human connection, including appropriate physical touch, was indeed crucial for her well-being, but she had also learned that meeting these needs required intentionality, respect for others' boundaries, and a commitment to building balanced relationships based on mutual care rather than dependence. Lisa's stress levels remained much lower than they had been during her years of isolation, but now that improvement was sustained through multiple sources of connection and better self-care practices. She had learned to give and receive appropriate physical affection as part of normal, healthy relationships rather than as a desperate attempt to fill an overwhelming void. The experience taught her that understanding human psychology, even through rigorous scientific research, was only the first step. Applying that knowledge wisely and ethically require ongoing self-awareness, professional guidance when needed, and a genuine commitment to treating others with respect and care. Her story became one of learning that the science of human connection is most powerful when used thoughtfully, with full awareness of both its benefits and its potential for misuse.